Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sheepcraft. We have a lot of things to go on today, but as you can tell, I'm doing that thing where I stand in one very specific pose because I am hiding something. And hiding I am because there's been a lot of progress done between episode 3, the shortest episode, and this episode. And with episode 2 being our longest episode yet at 50 minutes, I have a feeling I need to balance things out a little bit. Still get some progress done, do a little bit of time lapse, do a little bit of voiceover, a little bit of live recording, put it all together, and send it out because I cannot be doing hour-long episodes on this series. That is far too much. That took too long, but I still need to get things done. So let's get into the big part of today. And the big part of this episode is those two things shown at once. We have elytras now, and more importantly, we also have a trident. That is all thanks to Milk having a giant farm and selling me a few of these. And the first one I actually died with, but we don't talk about that. We have a trident again. But the next thing that we have to deal with is actually right over here. Because of the button wars, Rumi and Chris have gone a lot more daring in their attempts, and we have buttons absolutely everywhere. And I do mean everywhere. There's more buttons in places than I can count. That is for certain. But we need to clean these up. We need to completely get rid of these. It's just completely killing all ways of creating videos for me because if you notice, there's a few times where I stand inside of our mini base here and I'm facing this way to not show the buttons. That has been such a struggle when recording because I'm trying not to show that just for this so that we can clean it up. And they went and added more of them. I can't believe them. So we are going to gather them up and we're going to find a way to return the buttons to them in a very fun way. And I have a bit of an idea on how to do that. Also, say hi to Joe. Joe's been standing in the corner. He's very cute. Let's go ahead and start a time lapse, see if we can remove all of these buttons into shulker boxes and then deal with everything as soon as we can. This is one of those tasks that I would classify under being a Herculean task, something that requires far more effort and far more actual focus than what you originally assign it. This took almost an hour for me to clear up all of these buttons. I am fully aware that the amount of buttons exceeds all expectations, but this took far longer than expected. It took so long that in the middle of it, I found myself completely losing track of what I was doing and having to redo what I was originally supposed to be doing, removing the buttons, which honestly just adds more fuel to the fire that we need to get back at Chris. Post recording, I learned that it was primarily Chris. Rumi did a few at the start, but it's been Chris that's been continuously adding buttons to this already catastrophically large mess in our base. But to be fair, where credit is very much due, it gave me a lot of time to think about the area and what we have going on. Through this little bit of time, I found that there's a lot of possible decor that we could be doing with this area. We could build building piers, ports, basically an entire section to do with the ocean, not just the base where we're going to be staying and living at. However, that's going to require a lot more effort, a lot more thought, and a lot more care, something that for this episode I know I will not be able to do. Probably not for the next few episodes either because the holidays are around the corner. Speaking of which, we will be doing something for the server, but that's more on for later. After the holidays, we will be returning back and working as much as we can on our build, trying to get everything done. I'm not going to go too ham because I know that I'm not going to be able to record too much. So it's just going to be like small things, bits and pieces here and there, and also starting a little bit of work on the time capsule just so that we can wrap that up in a clean, nice episode so that when the time comes, all of that is required of me is to put the armor stands, the items, and then we can close that up and then be done with our room. We will not be done with the time capsule because we still have a few people that have not really done anything in regards to that. That's alright, things get in the way. Okay, we've cleared all of the buttons from this place, and it looks so much cleaner now. Oh my god, it makes such a difference. And I tallied up the total of buttons. 3,006. That's right, 3,000 buttons were placed all over this place. 3,000. I do not know how to express my concern for Chris and Rumi. Even considering the fact that around half of that was wood, that is still a large amount of logs to mine. Anyway, that's done, so we're gonna have to find a way to get back at them for the large number of buttons they've left on our front step, and I have just a way to deal with it, but that's going to be for way later. Maybe not even this episode. Because now, I want to get into the terraforming and the building. So, for the first time in this series, I've always wanted to say this. It is time for a super fast build mode. Okay, it is now the next day, and this is what we have so far. Taking a quick test flight here, we have a lot of moss up here to have a lot of different colors of green, just because the grass can be kind of boring. But because we have the brown, we have two different kinds of greens. It looks a lot better. We also have this highlight on the edges. I wasn't planning on doing this. I was going to actually have this be the other way around, but having it go from dark to light kind of helps it a lot more than I thought it would. And we also have a lot of people would call this just random BSing and going, since it's such a short height that having this many blocks for it seems weird. But everything serves a purpose. Rocks IRL are not very smooth, so having some parts that are rough, like the andesite and the cobblestone, as well as the tough, kind of helps that drag that idea forward. And we also have the tough for some shadows, as well as the tough bricks in between the layers here. And we have a moss layer down here with some mud bricks, just because it would make sense that at some point, some of the dirt up there would fall down and compact down into lumps and bits and pieces, but it also wouldn't be a flat area. So we have some dips in the ground of where I imagine some of the dirt would be compacted a little too much and it would fall further down than the layer. And so we are left with this beautiful cliff that I am actually very happy with. It was something I made on the fly. I hadn't designed this prior. So it was just me absolutely placing blocks, figuring out how it went. And I'm really glad that it worked out. And the shelves here. I am so glad that we have shelves in the game. They are such a good addition to builds. I didn't think that it would work out, but it did. There's something so intrinsic about the smoothness that it adds to a build. Because having a block there would have been far too jarring. But because we have this now essentially a vertical slab, it helps transition things across multiple layers of field of view. So I'm really glad that this turned out this well. And for the rest of this episode, I would like to focus on the actual main structure here. So I spent some time in between the clips actually putting down ideas and finalizing it. And I'm glad that I did because it led me down a rabbit hole of revisiting nostalgia of TF2 maps. And it made me realize the blue base is not as blue as I remembered. Because the red base, it's like a very bright red. It's basically everywhere in the red base. But the blue base is mostly silver. So because of that realization, I went back and revisited some of the old designs that I had. And what I want to do now is have a centerpiece here, a side piece here, and then a large scale build back here, all with decor, a lot of plants, and a big tree up here in the top section of our roof. I also want to have a water tower back there. And because I revisited the old design, it meant that I had to regather some of the blocks that I would need. And it let me down a very weird rabbit hole, but I got all of the stuff. So now we have a very silvery, stonish color for the main section here and the building that's going to be back there. We have a bit of a white off color for the section here, and we're going to have the blue be on all the parts that are going to be up here, as well as the tree that's going to be up there. But that is, I think, a little too much. I think it's better if I just show you in another time lapse. This time lapse would have been a lot longer. However, Coffee and Rat showed up at the start, since Rat and I were watching Hermitcraft Season 11 while sitting in a Discord voice call. They were both a massive help to me with clearing out this massive section of the forest just above where I wanted to put the blue headquarters, which by myself would have taken a lot more than 2.5 hours. But instead, thanks to their help, their massive help, I managed to clear this out in around an hour. And speaking of getting help, the sheeps are an amazing community. They are all so willing to help when they're all available. After the forest clearing, Rat was spawn-proofing the Nether Highway, which was a task that I had been completely putting off since I had my building to do. And to add on to that, Eagle was extending the ice boats to include a lot of the off-main portals, especially the new end portal that Eagle had set up the other day. After dying to the void during the end raid, Milk gave me access to to his villagers and his iron golems again, which was very appreciated. And he even helped me out by gearing me up as well. And after that gear up, we did an end bus together to get backup elytra since I bought one from 24 Kings and I need a lot of shulker shells, so got a 2-in-1 deal there. We actually got so many shulker shells that I am able to sell excess and still have so many left over that I doubt I will ever run out. that isn't the point. The whole server is so willing to jump in and help that it makes things feel a lot more special. The total time-lapse runtime between clearing the forest, clearing the hill, refilling the hill, and then also building up the entirety of Blue HQ took somewhere around 6 hours, all of which was done pretty much back to back to back, just because it meant that I would keep focus on the task at hand. But I also had a lot of entertainment because, as I mentioned earlier, I was watching a lot of different perspectives from Hermitcraft Season 11. Ended up watching Green, ended up watching Mamba, and by the time that we were done, we had started watching Zuma. Who can I just say I love his bass, but that's for another thing. If it hadn't been for all of that, I think I would have genuinely lost my mind by the time that I was done, because it would have taken probably 8.5 hours to do all of this. So, once again, I owe a huge thanks to Coffee and Rat for making this process a lot quicker and a lot easier. Also gave me a lot more space to play with for terraforming and for adding trees and adding rocks and whatnot. But I don't know what I'm going to do with that area just yet, just because it is so expansive that it leaves a lot of room for change and a lot of room for a lot of cool concepts to come into play, which I'm hoping I'll be able to do, since by the end of this, we will only have the main building, the headquarters, and the sniper outpost of the water tower. And I would like to do an homage to all of the different characters of the team. So, for example, having an area dedicated to the demo man, having an area dedicated to the heavy. I have this idea of having a training area dedicated to the soldier with different player heads, just because I find that so funny from back in the original Meet the Team videos, but I still have a lot of planning to do for that section. And I'm going to switch topics here real quick, because in between the clips that you've seen throughout this video, which have been days apart, I watched the FNAF 2 movie, and I'll talk about it without spoiling either the first or the second movie, since I know a lot of people haven't watched it yet, especially the second one. But I'm typically not a big fan of jump scare or horror movies. However, this series has me hooked. The scare factor matches what child me felt when I first encountered the FNAF games back God knows how many years. But when it was simple, cool robots that would just hunt you down until the clock hit 6 a.m. But anyway, it's gotten me back into the FNAF community. It's been running through my mind basically 24/7. And I've just been coming up with ideas for what could be happening next and how things could play into the next few movies if, we get anything more than 3 movies. And I can honestly not wait for what will happen in the upcoming movie, since there's so many things set up, so many things that could be at play, that it's filling me with so much joy that these movies are completely filled to the brim with fan service. All of the tiny references and the small details just make this movie so much better than what I was expecting it to be. We are aware that the next movie has been in production for a while, basically since FNAF 2 was halfway done. So when that gets set out to the public and we can actually properly watch it, I'll report back and we'll see how I feel about it. But I am honestly loving this adaptation of something that I've followed basically since I was very young. But back to the Minecraft talk real quick. Before planning this whole area and preparing this time lapse, I had a vague mental image of what I wanted to do for several buildings that were all interconnected with multiple different depths, since that's something I like to play with. And typically, that mental image is enough for me to write the whole project's length. But not this time. This didn't even answer how big I wanted the build to be. So, while having the reference images of the TF2 maps, I noticed that everything's a lot more industrial than I remember it being. So I would like to play with the facade imagery of this is a nature first organization, but behind the scenes they're very much into that whole industrial destroying everything kind of thing. and I'm hoping that I can use that to play into the Mega Eclipse Monk City, but that's going to be for God knows later. As for this build, I did have to go into Creative World and kind of make a hollow schematic that I could follow because I had basically no frame of reference, even with the mental image that I had. So I'm glad that I did because it gave way for me to do what I actually wanted to do originally of having the multiple deaths and still having that TF2 feel. But anyway, time lapse over. All right, everybody, that is going to be where we are going to be ending this episode. But before we do, I want to talk about this build. So this has kind of been a spur of the moment thing that I did in creative and absolutely loved and thought that it would work well in this environment, and it has. But I have bit off more than I could chew for this episode. I wanted to see if I could get this tall building done, which will go up to around here. I can't. This episode's getting a little too long, so I thought that I would, instead of trying to also complete the tree at the same time and the water tower, I thought that I would just leave that for the next episode. So for the next episode, we will focus on making this big tree here, finishing the second half of this building here, adding the decor, finishing this section here, which is a little wooden shed. And I'm hoping that by the stream later tonight, I have this piece here somewhat decorated because this is very hollow. There's no interior, there's nothing here. And that's on purpose because I didn't want to design absolutely everything. Like I said in the first few episodes, I like walking through the process, but this is far too big of a build to walk through the process while also using Lightmatica to make sure that all of the details are right. And something you might not notice is that there's 3 different styles of shading here. And it's so fascinating seeing how they work together. There's shading through color, shading through shadow, and shading through emphasis. There's there's such a weird combination of all of them happening here. But I am absolutely loving how this is turning out, and I can't wait for all of it to be here. I also need to terraform this place out back. I don't know what I'm going to do for this just yet. I don't know if I want to bring up that terrain height to this part here, or if I want to add rocks here, here, and back here to kind of give more style to the place. Either way, I'm liking how all of this is starting to look and how it's all coming together. And I can't wait to see what we do with Deviate for that part of the river. And yeah, I'm really happy with this. In between the clips, I have set up a secret Santa, which will be the entire focus of the next episode, which I'm hoping to get out before the holidays, but that's not going to be guaranteed. It is very much just a wish, but all of this stuff has been set up, so it's just a matter of waiting for it to happen. And yeah, when that happens, I will make sure to make a video on it. But alright, everybody, I hope that you've all enjoyed this big building episode since we built the terraforming section there, as well as all of this. Ignore the shulker monster. That'll only get worse as we continue adding buildings. But that's been all for this episode. That's all from me. I hope you've all enjoyed, and if you like what you see and want to see it live, come check out the Twitch, The Unwanted Ray. I will see you there, and I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye, folks. Oh, and happy holidays.